Welcome to Tabletop Gaming Guild. Tabletop Gaming Guild is all about the experiences and memories that playing tabletop games with friends and families can create. Today we're looking at Earth, a 1 to 5 player game designed by Maxime Tardif and published by Inside Up Games. Earth is an environmentally themed engine building game with a follow mechanic. What that means is on your turn you'll be taking one of 4 actions, then triggering any cards you have in front of you that relate to that actions. All other players get a lesser version of that same action and also get to trigger any cards in front of them that relate to that action. This all serves to gather resources such as compost, soil, sprouts, tree growth, and strive for private and public objectives, all of which at the end of the game are worth points. If you're playing with the basic game, you're going to be using this side of the public board, in which you're going to only have 4 fauna cards as public objectives, all of which are worth the same number of points regardless of when you accomplish them. You also have access to a bonus 7 points for anybody who completes their environment, aka their 4x4 grid of cards. In the standard or advanced game, you will use the opposite side of this board, in which case you're going to have 4 fauna public objectives that are going to have decreasing values for each subsequent person who completes one. You'll also have 2 public ecosystem objectives as well as 1 private objective each. Each player is dealt an island and a climate card, and looking at both sides, choose which side you want to use. On the bottom, you'll notice they have your starting resources, so how many cards you get to draw. Of those cards, how many you have to discard, but discards go in your compost and are worth points, and it also are resources that you can spend. Every island card also has an ability that triggers based on specific actions. Climate cards are also double-sided, have starting value as well as starting symbols, and have an ability that triggers with specific actions. The basic Earth cards have a variety of symbols on them, cost and soil, and below that is its value in victory point. Every card will have various symbols and terms that are referred to by scoring cards, as well as spaces for scoring tokens, as well as effects that occur with specific actions. There are also event cards in this deck, which are one-time actions that can be taken at any time, whether it's your turn or not. These have a victory point value that can be in the negative, as well as an instant effect. So let's get into the actual turn. The green action gives the active player a chance to plant 2 cards from their hand, and then draw 4 cards from the deck, choosing 1 to keep. All other players can then follow, being allowed to plant 1 card, and then draw 1. After this, all players get to activate any green abilities on any of their cards, including your island or environment. When you plant a card, you must pay the cost in soil, and any future cards need to be placed adjacent to existing cards. Always bear in mind that you have a 4x4 grid, so while you can place in any direction, you can never exceed 4 in a column or 4 in a row. Also bear in mind that placement determines trigger order, as well as a lot of cards refer to having specific symbols in same column or row, so placement can be very important. The next possible action is this reddish action that gives you a chance to get soil as well as compost cards. Again, everybody gets to then run any red actions on their cards. The teal action gives you sprouts. Sprouts go on the indicated spots on cards in your tableau. The final action allows you to draw cards as well as grow trees. When you grow a tree, for example on this card that has an indicated value of 5, you would continue to grow using the generic trunks sections until you're 1 short of the max. The last placement is capped with a canopy of your color, indicating this tree can grow no further. Finally, the game end is triggered once somebody has placed their 16th card in their 4x4 grid. The game then continues until all players have played the same number of turns. At the end of the game, pretty much everything scores. First off, you get the base value of all cards in your tableau, as well as your island and climate cards. Next, you'd get the base value of all event cards you've played. 1 point for all cards in your compost pile, 1 point for each sprout on cards. 1 point for every trunk in an incomplete tree, or if the tree is complete, you would get the value printed on the card. Points scored from terrain cards, points from private and public ecosystem goal cards, and points scored from fauna cards throughout the game. And a bonus 7 points for whoever completed their tableau first. Finally, you would total up the score, and whoever has the most points wins the game. So that's how Earth is played. It's a very intriguing environmental game. I really do like games with follow mechanics because it means that you're always actively involved. Whether it's your turn or not, you are always doing something. It also adds an interesting strategy element because you can focus on building your engine and synergizing your own engine with the actions you plan on taking, or you can focus on building an engine that triggers on other people's actions. The private and public objectives can be quite challenging, and first game of them, a lot of people are going to forget about them because there's so much to focus on your own tableau, so much strategy and making sure you're synergizing, and that can be a big downfall and a big loss of points. Often in the first game of this, it's the person who remembers to pay attention to those end game scorings and public objectives is the one that's most likely going to win. Overall, it's a very solid game and overcomes one of the major flaws of many engine builders, in that many engine builders fail to have a lot of player interactions. This game, through the follow mechanic, every turn matters, and what other people do really impacts your turns and your strategy. The one thing I could say that's a possible negative game is because there's no scoring throughout the game, all that scoring at the end can take a fair amount of time. That also means that throughout the game, generally there's only a vague idea who could be winning. You really have no good clue of how well you are performing. In addition to that, it can be a very difficult game to teach because a lot of the actions and play is essentially done or can be done simultaneously. That said, this is a very solid game. It's a little bit complex, but once you jot down how to play it, it is very satisfying and very worthwhile. Thank you again for watching. Please join us again on YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, and other social medias. And please don't forget to like and subscribe.